Hello YouTube, this is Kirko Kaiser. This is going to be the second part of my series where I'm going through the World Championship match of Henry versus Brandon Smith, giving like constructive criticism on the match, like talking about what I thought were good plays and not so good plays. And here is game 2, so let's get started. So Henry gets to go first game 2, as I recall. He draws and he misrides, passes. So up to Smith. Smith doesn't misride, in fact he has the ride chain. And he doesn't miss with the search, he gets the grade 2 from what I can remember. Yep, there it is, Vortimir. Calls Slagle so that he has something to retire next turn, attacks for 15. Drive checks Duke, so now he has the full chain. Back to Henry. Henry draws a mark, so he's catching up now. Attacks for 11. Drive checks, damages. Smith gets back to Smith. He rides Vortimir, retires Slagle, calls his top 2. Vivian on a draw. He plays a Slagle to team up with Vivian. He plays a Vortimir. And then he attacks with Vivian first for 16, meaning he would have to 15 guard in order to block it. He doesn't, which makes sure Vivian gets through and gets the +1. Fortunately, it calls a heal trigger. His Vanguard attack next. No guard. Damage check. Draw trigger. Draw. And then when the Vortimir attacks, it gets 5 guarded. Now it's back to Henry. Henry rides Vivian, which I'm going to pause it here. That's kind of a misplay. As you're going to see in a moment, he's going to play a rear guard Bauman's. It would have been a lot better to ride Bauman's, because now when he attacks that Vivian for 14 against the 10k Vortimir, Smith can just 10 guard, no pass, and that Spring Breeze has no chance. So, yeah, would have been better to ride Bauman's instead of Viv. First, Henry attacks with Vivian against Vivian, which is a good play to make, because Smith could have used his intercept to make sure there was no 9k attacker, like something that 9k could attack. This is where he attacks his Vanguard for 14. Smith guards for 10, so it's no pass. Right there. No trigger. And now Bauman's attacks. Smith takes it. Back to Smith. Right, Duke. Then he retires the heal trigger that's on the field. Looks at his top 2. This is where I think Smith could have done this maybe a little bit better. It's not like a huge deal though. He ends up calling both of them. One's a grade 1 Vortimir, one's a heal trigger. And then he's going to end up retiring that heal trigger to play another card so he has bigger columns. He could have just put that heal trigger on the bottom. He didn't have to call it. It's not a huge play because it's not like Smith can really has any method to shuffle his deck and give that trigger a chance of showing up. But it could have been a little bit better. But yeah, this is where he plays Duke and Destroyer. And this is where he activates his Slagle's Counterblast to get it +2. Gonna pause it. That would not really be a great play, because like Destroyer gets +2 in attacking, so it's a 12. Teamed with a 7, it's hitting 19 if you don't Counterblast. Vivian is a 9, so swing for 19 means he'd have to 15 guard. And if you Counterblast and make it 21, it's still a 15 guard. So it was kind of a wasted Counterblast. And then, as he's already started, Smith attacks with Duke first. I guess you could try and argue this, but I would really think it would have been better to attack with that Destroyer first. Since it's a 15 guard, it would have put Henry in a tight spot. Henry wouldn't want to guard it, but he would kind of have to. Or not necessarily, but it would put him in a harder spot because he wouldn't want to guard it, but if he takes it, he'll be at 4. Then when Duke attacks, that means a single crit could kill Henry. So, probably would have been better to have Destroyer attack first. Either force that 15 guard, or put him at 4 and put him at the risk of losing to a crit, which would mean he'd probably still 10 guard the Vanguard, so it's 2 to pass. And then he'd still have to worry about the rear guard. But Smith attacks with Duke first, and it doesn't get guarded, and there you go, there's a crit. So it could have gone the other way. He gives it to the power boost the rear guard and the Vanguard. Henry takes the 2 damage. It's a crit, powers up. Now the Duke attacks for 22, so it's 10 guard. And now Destroyer attacks for 21, and it's a 10 guard. Whereas if it had attacked sooner, it would have been a 15 guard, and this could have been a very different scenario. But Henry kind of messes up a little bit here too. He guards with a Lopier and a Viv. If you know, had a 10k crit in his hand, and you can see right there he paused when after he already put the Lopier out there, because he realized I could have just used the crit instead of using up 2 cards. And since he had already put the Lopier out there, he had to go with the Viv, so again, but not a huge deal. Back to Henry. He rides, plays a Lion and Gareth with it. Now first he attacks with his Bowmans. I don't really agree with doing that, and he's having an attack Destroyer. I don't really have a problem with it attacking Destroyer, but he probably should have had Pelennor attack first. That way, if he had hit, because Smith is almost nowhere, it's extremely unlikely for Smith to die this turn since he's at 2 damage. So any triggers that Pelennor could have drive checked could have pumped Bowman's up to at least 15, which doesn't matter as much against the 11k Duke, but there's rear guards that the Bowmans could have attacked, and it would have forced 10 shields instead of 5 shields to protect them. So, but he has attacked the Destroyer, and I believe it's allowed to hit. And then he attacks with his Vanguard. Right here, Smith, as you can see, 10 guard, so it's 2 to pass. This is a debatable decision, because since it's 2 to pass, he's basically saying it's not going to hit, because Henry would most likely give the triggers to his rear guard. Yeah, I may have taken the damage had I been Smith, since Henry right now has, I think it's like 1-2 cards in hand and 5 damage. If Smith takes this attack, and then takes the next attack, he'd be at 4, and he could limit break. And with Henry being in the corner, it could have forced Henry to use up all his resources, or actually even finish the game right there. Especially if Henry was to drive check a crit. Which is, like, well, not especially, but there's the other side to it where if Smith had not guarded this, taken the hit, Henry could see that Smith is at 3 and chose to attack the rear guard instead of letting Smith hit 4 and giving him the threat of limit break. But had Henry hit a crit, there's no reason why he wouldn't give it to the Vanguard, deal that 2 damage. The Smith would have been able to limit break anyway. So it's a debatable thing, but there's always the chance Smith could have let it go through, give himself the chance to limit break. But there's also the side of, by guarding like this, he's not allowing himself to get to limit break quick, which isn't usually a good decision, to just let yourself take damage just so you can limit break. It's usually better just to wait. Eventually they'll hit that limit break from attacks that you couldn't have guarded easily. Plus, by doing it like this, it's less likely Henry would try to attack the rear guard, and Smith may not have enough resources to mount an attack because rear guards get killed. So it is a debatable thing, but there's always the chance that had he allowed that attack to go through and hit limit break, he could have won that turn. He has the Lion now attack the Vanguard, and Smith takes it. Back to Smith. Use another dragon since they're pointless. Attack for 16. Has to be blocked. Henry perfect guards it if I remember correctly. Smith checks, heal. Can't heal, he gives it to the dragon. Second check, draw trigger, gives it to the other dragon. So now each rear guard column would require 15 to guard. And right here Smith attacks with his dragon, and Henry chooses not to guard. As we can see right here, Henry's got line, which can intercept for 10. He's got Bowman's, which can intercept for 5. So right there, that's 15, which can block one of the two dragons. And in his hand, we can see he has a heal trigger and a Gareth. So he has another 15, so that means he can block the other rear guard. He lets this attack go through and loses. He could block both rear guard attacks, but he doesn't. He lets himself die. I guess when you're nervous, you make mistakes. But that's it for this one. A lot shorter than the last one, maybe not. But eventually, probably within a week, because I'm very busy with school, I'll have the game 3 up. Thank you for watching.